Good evening, a happy Saturday evening after an IU win over Illinois. The Hoosiers in come from behind heart attack fashion win 23-20 over old friend, foe Brett Bielema and the Illinois Fighting Illini. It was a huge win for Indiana, who was coming in on an 8-game losing streak from last year, 2-10, 0-9. They get off the schneid. It wasn't as pretty as IU fans maybe would have liked, but the most important thing is the win. I'm Sammy Jacobs. Along with me is Alex Compton. This is something we're going to call this year after the dust settles. I know we play on turf, and there is no dust, but it's after the dust settles. We've slept on the game. We've looked at the stats. We've digested it. We've taken the emotion out of it. And we're just going to go through what we liked, what we didn't like, and our thoughts from the game. So welcome, Alex.
Sammy, great to have. Thanks for having me on. Great to do this. I think this is going to be a great idea all season. Yeah, Friday Night Lights, Big Ten style. If we keep winning like that, I'll be a fan of it. But I think the hair will decrease and it'll get grayer if we keep doing it like that. But yeah, 1-0. And yeah, excited to jump on this and jump into the after the dust settles.
Yeah, before we get into the actual game part, I do want to give a shout out to the IU student body. They came out in full force. It looked to me like it was a sold out student section. The entire east side of the stadium was full, basically through halftime. And I would say about 60% of those student fans stayed throughout the game. The others probably caught the end of the game at a bar or back at the frat house with cheaper beer. But shout out to the students. They were loud. It was a good crowd. I think it was 44,000, almost 45,000. The alumni side, they need to step it up a little bit if they're going to keep pace with the students. But I think, as I've said over and over, Alex, that student body, you get 10,000 new freshmen every year. And that's a heck of a way to hook those freshmen onto IU football for the next 4 years at least.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It was great to see. I mean, they used every available seat and section. They were on top of the bands, which is an overflow area, and then they were all the way in the right corner, closest to the scoreboard end zone, in sections 30 and 31. So both of the quote unquote overflow sections were also full. So outstanding turnout. It was awesome. I thought, at least from my perspective, I was in section 13 last night. I thought things from last year were much improved. I thought the lines moved quickly. The beer lines and the food lines I thought were good. Parking and getting in and out of the stadium I thought was a little better than last year. But again, if you go 1-0, I'm not gonna, I'll wait in line all day if we go 1-0. So but yeah, so definitely agree on the students. That was awesome to see. Great to see everybody out there. And I'll be interested to see what the next two games on Saturdays look like, because I know Friday was tough for a lot of people, which is certainly understandable.
Yeah, next Saturday is against Idaho at 8 o'clock, and then Western Kentucky at noon. So definitely not as high profile of a game, but games that students should at least come out for a half or the entire game. So good on them. But let's talk about the game now, Alex. Is a 23-20 come from behind win. It looked like IU was, they took a 16-10 halftime lead. They came out at halftime, and you're thinking they got a field goal right before halftime. And you think, okay, this is great. They're going to get a 2-for-1 and make it a 2-score game and kind of swing the momentum in their favor. I believe it was the first pass of the half goes off of Anderson Kobe's hands into an Illini defender for an interception. They go down, score a touchdown, and then there were no scores after that until the last 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It was a fun, exciting game, and there's a lot to work on, a lot of concerns, but there's also a lot of positives that we didn't see last year. What were your, what was one thing that stood out to you the most?
Yeah, I would. I'll start. So that ball to Kobe in the second half, that was a good throw by Bays. So Bays ended up with 330 passing yards. Obviously the touchdown, and then that pick. But that's a pick technically in the book. But that's a ball that was right in his hands, wasn't behind him. That's got to be caught. But so I think you start with Bazelak and the receivers. I think all of the new faces at receiver looked like they had been in the system. There weren't very many, if any, that I can remember miscommunications. Maybe there was one, I think, on a Barner route. But they looked in sync. Bazelak seemed to know where everyone was going to be. The receivers seemed to know right when they were supposed to get out of their break and look for the ball. So I thought that was great. Cam Camper, how about him? JUCO guy, not highly touted, didn't even put up monster numbers in JUCO, comes out and just has a monster first game. He had 18 targets in his first game of Division I football, ends up 11 catches for 156 yards. So I think you start with Camper. DJ Matthews looked healthy, 7 catches, 109 yards, and then that 52-yard touchdown. Those two guys alone had 30 targets. So moving forward, I think you're going to see other guys have to get in the mix more. But I think overall, the passing game, I liked the timing. We'll talk about the O-line, I'm sure, during this at some point. But timing and scheme-wise with the routes and Bazelak being on the same page with the receivers, I thought that was something that stuck out to me as a definite positive.
Yeah, we'll get to the offensive line here in a couple minutes. But you had 5 receivers with 2 or more targets. AJ Barner with, 6 with targets over 2 and things like that. Donovan McCulley got his first catch as well. You really, really need some of the other guys to step up, but if you have the recipe for success, Cam Camper, DJ Matthews, and AJ Barner. Those guys accounted for nearly 200 yards in the passing game, and I thought Connor Bazelak was fantastic. Even though his completion percentage wasn't anything great, they made those plays, the explosive plays, and he was 8 of 9 on that final drive for 70 yards. The one incompletion was something that we didn't see last year. It was a smart throwaway. He knew the play wasn't there. You just launch it over the receiver's head into the stands. That's a play. If Michael Penix does that 3 or 4 times last year, maybe you pull out some of those games, maybe against Cincinnati and things like that. So I thought Bazelak was cool, calm, and collected. And the biggest thing for me, he came into that post-game press conference hyped up. And this is a dude who does not talk. He, coming in, it's his first year at IU, and he's bought in. He's going there, he's clapping, he's saying, "Go Hoosiers," coming into the press conference. You could see why they named him the starting quarterback. Even though Jack Tuttle is still named the captain, has his teammates' respect, Connor Bazelak has command of the offense, and you saw just how perfect that throw to DJ Matthews was. And we talked to Matthews after the game, Alex. That play was not supposed to happen. Matthews supposed to come, turn back, saw the wide open field, said, "Hey, I'm going deep," and Bazelak put it. You couldn't drop it in his hands.
Nah, it was beautiful.
Any better than that?
Yeah.
So
but that's an interesting point, because that's something we heard. And camp was, as we've talked about, a little more closed this year. Not as much coming out, not as many media, no open practices or spring game or nothing in the fall like that. But that was something, the receivers and then Bell talked about, is the freedom on some of those routes to be creative, take space if they see it. But again, that comes down to being comfortable with your quarterback. So I think game 1 against a Big Ten opponent with a good secondary, Illinois has a good, experienced veteran Big Ten secondary. I thought passing game, just the concepts and the routes and things like that, I thought that was great. Besides the drop by Kobe, besides that fumble by Camper, I think receivers I would give a B+ or A- grade. I know we're not grading positions in this, but I thought the wide receiver group with so many new faces, I thought it was great.
Yeah, and we didn't even get to see Omar Cooper, Jalen Lucas on offense. Cooper was returning kicks. And Jalen Lucas, we saw him in at gunner on the punt team maybe once or twice, but shocked that he didn't play. But let's get to that offensive line and run game, Alex. It was tough sledding to say the least. I don't like to count sack yards in the run game because it's not a rush play, it's a pass play.
Right.
So non sack yards, IU had 42 yards. They just couldn't get anything going. Post game, they said that Illinois ran a defensive front that they had not seen on tape and had not prepared for, which fine, okay. But you got to do better than that going forward. You're a little concerned about Matthew Bedford. You hope that that's not a major injury, but he was out stretching and trying to give it a go in his pads to start the second half, which you would think if it was a major injury like a torn ACL or something like that, they wouldn't take the chance. Luckily, Indiana has Idaho and Western Kentucky up to kind of, get that run game right. I thought the offensive line was good in pass protection. You had a pocket for Connor Bazelak, which we have not seen since 2020. I think you need a lineup change. I think you need to put Khalil Benson in at right guard instead of Tim Weaver, and maybe give Josh Sales a shot at that right tackle position if Matthew Bedford isn't up to the task. You're not going to need Matthew Bedford against Idaho. You might need him against Western Kentucky, but it's at least a 1 week thing where you could say, hey, we're going to play Parker Hanna, who struggled, and Joshua Sales and get these young guys a Division I game under their belt going forward, which I thought, man, last year they didn't do, and I thought that was a wasted opportunity. So what did you think about the run game? It started, man, Shivers took a shot early in the first play of the game, but delivered the final knockout blow there. What did you take away from that run game?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I would say is I thought, it's sometimes tough when you run the tempo, which I thought was another good thing I liked from Bell last night. Even if, incomplete on first down or didn't really get anything on the running game in first down, they kept the tempo up. They were aggressive for the most part on offense all night, which I thought was good to see. They didn't really look like they were panicking if it was 2nd and 8, 3rd and 7, which is good. But run game, I think the one thing I did like, I think they did try to give some different looks. They tried some sweeps, they tried some RPOs, they tried some traditional read options, they tried some zone plays. I think they tried some things. So, and again, I will say, Illinois having played a 85%, 75 to 80% running team last week in Wyoming, I mean, it's a huge advantage to get a game under your belt, to tackle someone else, to go against an offensive line that you want to hit, that you want to get past, and you want to tackle the ball carrier. So I thought, that definitely plays a role into it. I mean, Parker Hanna, he was in on the last drive. Obviously, he was in after Bedford got hurt at right tackle. I think that was more of he's played college football already. I don't know. Hopefully he gets better during the season. He did not look great at right tackle last night. But running game wise, it was good to see Khalil Benson out there. I thought he looked pretty good. Him and Weaver switched off a little bit at right guard there. But yeah, I think you need more. I think what you're going to start to see are, instead of the RPOs, I think you may see some more runs out of the pistol, just quicker gives, quicker dives. There was nothing. Shivers and Henderson, they just could not get anything going outside the tackle box, especially. It wasn't a speed thing, really. There was just nowhere for them to go. I thought they were both patient. I thought they were both looking for where the holes should be, but, just nothing. But, Bazelak had a couple nice scrambles, but again, that's more of having a nice pocket in the pass game. But definitely, hopefully, the next 2 weeks, hopefully get guys healthy, get some different looks in. But yeah, I think they definitely have to mesh better in the run game.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of criticism of Walt Bell. Even today after the win, which I think is kind of ridiculous. I get that people have their mind made up because they hired a coach that went 2-23 at UMass, but I thought he called a pretty good game outside of a
Mhm.
couple, third down runs, third and long runs where you're like, what, you're punting on the drive
Yeah,
and not really
going for a
giving
field
yourself.
goal. Yeah, a couple times we just settled for three, but yeah, I think Bell. Again, passing game, we already touched on it. I thought he had some nice concepts. I liked the tempo. I liked the different formations. I liked the use of motion a lot. We didn't see a ton of that, especially in the end of the season last year. But again, most of that was due to injuries and the different quarterbacks. But I would like to see, I liked the tunnel screens. I liked the swings. There were a bunch of things I liked. Now we just have to figure out what can we execute. So I think the next 2 weeks will help with that. Cincinnati's playing Arkansas right now. Both teams look real physical. So, yeah, definitely have to improve. But Sammy, how surprised are you, especially when Shivers and Henderson really couldn't get it going, that we didn't see, a Holloman, even a Spiegel, and especially Jalen Lucas?
I'm shocked we didn't see Jalen Lucas. He's a guy that people have talked up all camp.
Mm-hmm.
And all that stuff that they're going to get the ball into his hands. They need to get the ball into his hands. I mean, he was healthy because he played on special teams, but it was kind of surprising that, I mean, maybe he is a true freshman. Maybe they don't trust him yet to go in there. I would
Mm-hmm.
expect that the next two games you're going to get a heavier dose of Jalen Lucas. Trent Howland wasn't dressed. David Holloman, I think, is the odd man out in that group.
Yeah.
But he does have speed. I was kind of surprised that Holloman wasn't the kick returner, and it was Omar Cooper. But it is what it is. I don't think you could have Tevin Coleman would have struggled running behind that line. I mean, maybe he pops it outside a little bit more, but the run game, it's concerning. I wouldn't say it's a total loss cause right now. It is concerning because in order to beat some of the other Big Ten teams, you're going to have to be able to run the ball. Because we saw that in the Purdue Penn State game. You have to run the ball. You have to chew clock.
Yep.
You have to run the ball. And even when you run tempo, you still have a 4-minute offense where you're getting to the line fast and then you're slowing it down, and things like that. So I was just shocked that they didn't use Jalen Lucas. They've been talking up this kid for since he arrived on campus, and I'm just shocked that they didn't, try to get him the ball.
Yeah, and we'll see. Maybe it was a scheme thing. Maybe it was an Illinois personnel thing. Maybe they wanted, Matthews in the slot more to have more room, so Lucas going out and passes would crowd it up. So, lots we don't know. Obviously, I would be shocked if we don't see him more moving forward, especially in the next 2 weeks. But we'll see. He's definitely a playmaker. Yeah. So last thing on the O line before we switch over here. Again, pass pro, I thought they were good. So I think the O line deserves some credit. Obviously, have to get a lot better. But I do think some of the run game issues were just Bell used either tunnel screens or quick passes on first down as the running game. So I thought there were a lot of quick hitters for Bays. They were very decisive on when they wanted to take their shots, which were good for the most part. But I thought a lot of the quick hitters from Bays-Black were almost designed running plays. So I thought those all looked really good, all in rhythm. So we'll just have to see. But obviously, O-line has to get better in the running game. But overall, I think pass pro is good. They gave up 1 sack and 3 quarterback hurries last night. So a lot of it was just quick timing. So that, wasn't Bays-Black standing back there running around for his life. But some positives to build on. Definitely have to get better in the running game. Illinois ran the crap out of the ball last night. Chase Brown had 199 yards rushing.
But you know what?
Yeah.
They didn't do it from the 2-yard line.
Yeah.
They got stuffed. We'll talk about defense here in a second. And that would probably be my play of the game on the defensive side of the ball was that goal line stand.
Yeah. 2 play. Yeah. 3rd and 4th down, they went, here's our best player. He's going to run right at you behind our big offensive line. Let's see if you can stop him. third down, I think it was Cam Jones and Sanguinetti. And then fourth down, I mean, that play, Tevis,
Had
and I
no
forget who
chance.
the other one is.
Aaron Casey.
Yeah, it was Ace. And I want to talk about Ace in a second here, but Casey and Tevis essentially tackled both of the guys on that dive RPO before that play even started. So, so I guess let's just jump into it right now, Sammy. I think the first thing I want to talk about is the linebacking group. Obviously, we know Cam Jones. We know who he is. I thought Aaron Casey, maybe besides the Outback Bowl against Ole Miss, played his best game as an Indiana Hoosier last night.
Yep. Aaron Casey was fantastic. There's a reason they gave him the number 44 jersey for George Taliaferro. He had 7 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss. And he, when Cam Jones went out, and that was a scary moment. He's writhing around. I mean, that could have been a total disaster sequence.
Yeah.
Your offense gives the ball away, and then all of a sudden, Cam Jones is writhing around on the ground, holding
and
his
DeMarcus
ankle,
Elliott on the same play.
And DeMarcus Elliott is down right behind him. And you're like, oh no, like this, that's the one guy on defense you probably can't afford to lose. But Aaron Casey jumped right in. Guys who I thought surprised me, Bradley Jennings Jr.
Yeah,
he had a sack, he had another half tackle for loss, so a total of 1.5 tackles for loss, for 10 yards. And then there's some other guys who played significant minutes in there.
Yeah, Jared Casey was out there a good amount, the Kentucky transfer as well.
Yep, and he had 4 tackles, half a tackle for loss. The coaching staff calls him the fastest linebacker on the team, on the defense, which is saying something since Cam Jones is on that defense, is in that group as well. So I feel pretty good about, they lost Micah McFadden, but I think you have more depth in that group to where if something like the McFadden injections against Cincinnati happened, that you feel pretty good about the next person coming in. So I was impressed with that linebacking group yesterday.
Yeah, I think they played really well. And then the one thing, you could definitely see that Tom Allen was calling the plays again last night.
Yes.
There were stunts up the middle. The linebackers were aggressive. There were, I think, 2 or 3 plays where either Pierre or Jalen Williams blitzed off the edge, which is something that we saw Allen do all the time at 19 and 20. But then last year, Charlton Warren just got away from it. They ran it the other way, but I think the idea of being aggressive, especially up the middle, put some pressure right in a quarterback like Tommy DeVito, who is serviceable, but not one of the better quarterbacks you're going to play this year. Make him beat you with guys in your face. Make him stretch the field against the secondary. I think they had a couple big passing plays and I think he missed one throw to Williams that would have been a big hitter. But for the most part, I think the secondary did a good job keeping everything in front of them. And they said our front seven is going to be very aggressive. And I think in passing downs, especially, that was crucial. Brown busted off a couple nice runs, but he's going to do that against everybody. I think he would start for every team in the Big Ten. He is an awesome player. So linebacking group deep. I really liked what I saw. I also thought the rotation at safety was very interesting, Sammy. I don't know if Monster got dinged up in that first half. But it did seem like, it was obviously Monster. And then at free safety on passing downs, it was John Haynes came in for Fitz almost every play. So Fitzgerald would kind of either play linebacker or Husky on some of the passing downs. And either John Haynes or Josh Sanguinetti would come in to relieve him on long passing downs. So I thought that was also, an interesting wrinkle, keep everybody fresh. What do you think about the mix of safeties? Sanguinetti came up with another huge pick for us too.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the radio booth. Was like, where's Monster? And Rhett Lewis asked that question, and we both looked at the computer. Go, oh, he had 6 tackles. But where is he? I don't think I have to go back and rewatch the game. I don't know if he played in the second half. I don't, which is kind of concerning. He's a big piece of that defense, and things like that. I thought the tackling got better as the game went along, which was expected. It's an opener, and that's what happens. You miss tackles in an opener. That's a danger of having an opener. If the opening game on
Yeah.
defense is, you just hope that you tackle well. And IU, I think, after the first half, started to tackle much better. Chase Brown's going to get his yards. That's what's going to happen. But they kept him out of the end zone. They forced a fumble on a backwards pass, and they got their 4 takeaways. That to me was the most important. And I think, if you're an IU fan, one that makes you happy. They got 4 takeaways. I think they only had 12 last year. So they covered a third of that in just one game.
Yeah, 4 forced fumbles to 3 of them recovered. So, yeah, four takeaways, and then obviously Illinois just had the 1. So that was a big key that we talked about leading up into the week. But probably should have been 4 takeaways to none. So that's back into the style of what Allen wants. You could tell Lance Bryant forced a fumble. He was playing outside or edge, and then drop back and still forced a fumble in the passing game. So you could tell guys were all over the field. Guys were fired up on defense. But yeah, I thought the DBs were interesting. And then I also think another guy that looked great. We had a couple stories on him in the offseason. Noah Pierre looked like he'd been starting at Husky for a while. He was pretty good in coverage. He was all over the field. I think he had one of those forced fumbles, if I'm not mistaken.
He had a forced fumble and a fumble recovery.
Yep. And a tackle for loss, 7 tackles. So he was the second leading tackler on the team. He was blitzing like crazy. He was in coverage. He was all over the field. He was still playing special teams. So, I mean, yeah, that's a guy that came in, not highly recruited, believed in the system, believed in the development, never complained when he was only playing special teams. And I mean, now he's a starter and a critical one at that. So I thought he played really well. And then another guy, I think we've been waiting for him since he's, the 4-star from Carmel, but Bo Robbins finally had that big play. He had that big sack on that last drive for Illinois.
Huge.
For their last time out. Yep.
Huge. He came flying around the end there. Just the tackle had no chance at blocking him.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean, Illinois gets a 19-yard pass, I think a play or two before, and then to force them to take that timeout, and they lost a whole bunch. I think they lost 7 yards on the play as well, to set up like a 3rd and 17.
Yeah.
It was, that kind of saved the bacon. You kind of thought, 19-yard pass in the first play. Yep. They're going to at least get a field goal, try to tie this, if not punch it into the end zone, because that's how IU fans think, because it's happened before and it's happened a lot. So that was a huge play. I also thought Deshaun McCullough had a big game, and they played him all over the field.
Yep, absolutely.
He had 6 tackles, half a tackle for loss, and he's a guy. He's just going to get bigger and better.
Yep, and as he gets more comfortable, I mean, he looked like he belonged. I mean, like if he was in different packages. He was, mostly passing downs for now, but I mean, man, they were bringing him up the middle, off the edge on some stunts, but man, he was quick coming out of that box down the line to get some heat on DeVito. I totally agree with that one.
Yeah, I think they called it in the radio booth the wolf position. It's just that, and you can imagine why they called it. It's just that person who's going to go out there and attack the ball.
Yep.
And follow the ball. So that was good to see. The tackling got better. I thought J.H. Tevis had a big game too.
Yeah.
He was impressive. I thought he would be kind of like Weston Kramer, just a high motor dude. Now Weston played well for us last year, but man, J.H. Tevis came up in some big spots.
Yeah.
And it is, I think he's built more like a Power 5 defensive lineman than Western Kramer. But man, he could play. I thought that this defense will, if they could stay healthy,
a lot of
defense
options.
is going to be solid.
Yep,
Very solid.
lot of bodies, and then yeah, the other true freshman, Nick James, the D tackle, he played a good amount as well. So,
Yep.
you know, two true freshmen were in the mix right away. So, but I think a positive, even without James Head at the end, obviously we want to get him back. So maybe, you know, if he's dealing with something, maybe we don't see him the next 2 weeks either. But still, a lot of bodies at, you know, at every position on defense right now. So it was nice to see the Alabama transfer, Brylan Lanier, it looked like he was corner 3. He was the first corner in for either Mullen or Williams. So, and AJ Barner got a defensive snap. So he's just, he's blocking punts last year. He's catching balls at tight end. And now he's just, you know, prevent defense, super safety back there. So maybe we'll get him some snaps at quarterback next week, huh?
Maybe, hopefully not due to injury.
Yes.
That's another thing I wanted to ask you about. There were a lot of injuries on both sides. You know, both sides for both sides. But for Indiana, there seemed to be, especially if Monster Matthews is dinged up. You had Matthew Bedford. You had a scare with Elliott and Cam Jones. Jalen Williams missed some time. Sean Shivers, we talked to him after the game. He just had the wind knocked out. He got
that was a
crushed.
great hit. Watching that replay, man. I mean, no
He just got
targeting. I
crushed.
mean, shoulder on shoulder. I mean, that was that's football. So it was
Yep.
great of him, though. You know, first play for him as a Hoosier gets absolutely lit up, and then his, you know, last play in his first game as a Hoosier, you know, scores the winner. So, but yeah, I mean, that was a great hit. So.
Any let's talk about special teams real quickly. I thought they played pretty well.
Mhm.
Illinois' punters set up IU for 10 points with
Yep.
punts of 12 and 23 yards. That might be the DJ Matthews effect. I don't think there was a lot of pressure on those punts, but to try and directionally kick away from a returner, and I don't think he rugby styled those, but he did later on in the game and kicked it better.
Yep.
But that was a huge break for IU. Somehow their field goal kicker decided that he could make field goals this week. The return games, IU's coverage units were good. There was one touchback that Jalen Lucas kind of let the ball go through his hands, but you know, no harm, no foul. I thought James Evans looked better, not great.
Yeah,
but
two of
better.
them. You know, he had those two that were, I think, like the 13 and the 12. They were down. They could have been, you know, a little deeper, but Illinois had the two returners back there on some of those shorter punts. I thought he looked a little more comfortable overall. You know, I think last year was his first time actually playing organized American football, so you would expect, you know, as he gets more games under his belt, to look a little better. But yeah, I mean, Chuck Campbell's is great. So 3 for 3 in that first half. You know, great. We've been very lucky, you know, to have some nice kickers come through the program the last decade or so. So yeah, special teams great. I thought blocking on the punt team was great, and then kickoff coverage I thought was great too, like you touched on. So that honestly all comes down to recruiting and coaching. So having, you know, more athletic bodies back there, so you don't have to play your starters back there. That stuff like that shows up, and that's what good programs do. So for, you know, we talked about it a lot. Illinois already had that game under their belt in week 0 against Wyoming. All things considered, for IU coming out in a massive game without having played a game yet, with so many new faces, with so many question marks, you know, say what you want, but you know, that was pretty impressive in my book. So obviously, you know, the games might get tougher here, but you know, that you know, should improve a lot of things, you know, with more snaps and more games. But yeah, I thought special teams was great.
Yeah, and yeah, Chris Freeman, who really hadn't kicked off all that much, he had 3 touchbacks. They did use Charles Campbell on a kickoff as well. He had a touchback. So, you know, alternating between those two will help. I'm not going to take questions on whether or not Charles Campbell's first field goal was good. Referees owe us a field goal. So, and it's an optical illusion. But overall, I thought it was a good win, much needed win. Tom Allen said in the press conference that he knew how important it was. He hadn't talked to the team about how important it was, so he didn't put that much pressure on them. But he knew it was he knew what was at stake. That's why he shut everything down, shut everybody out of practice. And as he's leaving the press conference, you just hear a big old Ric Flair woo outside in the hallway. And just it must have been such a relieving monkey off your back win for him in this program, that hopefully now that opens the gate to start 2-0 and 3-0, going to Cincinnati and Nebraska. If you split those, you're looking at 4-1, and you're sitting pretty, for maybe 6 wins and things like that. So, final thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I think positives first. I think Bazelak looked great. I think you can see his teammates trusted him, respected him, and that's why he was named the starter. I like the aggressiveness on offense, both with the deep ball, the tempo, and then using the middle of the field. I thought those were 3 things. Again, some of it was due to injury, of course, last year, but just scheme-wise, I liked a lot of what I saw on offense with the passing game and some of the different formations. Defense, I love the depth. I love the rotations. I think getting guys in, especially early in the season, is going to make every unit better and make the whole defense better. Negatives, again, it has to be that O-line. We have to be able to run the ball. I'm not saying you have to run for 250 yards every game, but you have to make them respect the run game, because Bazelak is not going to beat you with his legs very much. You have to get the running game going. So if that's screens, if that's more, if we try stuff under center, jet sweeps, something, you got to get the run game going. So for me, that's the biggest one. And then 2 negatives, you hope you come out of these next 2 weeks, obviously with 2 wins. I think, both teams took a step back from where they were last year when we played them. But again, we'll have more on those matchups coming up, of course. But hopefully you come out with a win on Saturday, and hopefully everybody gets out healthy. So we should know more about Matt Bedford on Monday, we've been told. But yeah, positives. I liked the offense. I liked how he handled, all the uncertainties, so many new faces, things like that. And negatives, got to run the ball and hopefully get through these next 2 weeks healthy. How about you?
Yeah. The final thoughts from the game are, hey, they won. It was one of those games. It reminded me of the 2019 Maryland game, where that was a game that classic IU would lose.
Yeah.
They turned the ball over at inopportune times. They had every opportunity to win it and didn't. I mean, how many times have we been on Illinois' side of that game?
Yeah.
Time in and time out. So to me, the tackling will get better. It is a game. The run game, you're right. They don't have to be spectacular. If you could get 3.5 yards per carry on average, you could live with that. That's not terrific, but you know what? That's a heck of a lot better than what they were doing last night. I did think Illinois sold out on the run too and dared IU to throw it, which was probably a mistake, because it's no longer the 2021 IU quarterbacks throwing it, but they took what they gave them, and that's what teams with a good culture and who know how to win do. They win games like that. So now you got to go package it, get out of this stretch 3-0, and then get back into Power 5. They count Cincinnati in the Power 5, since they're joining the Big 12. But Power 5 games, Big 10 games, and things like that. And just you hope everybody stays healthy. I would like to see Jack Tuttle and maybe Dexter Williams play the next 2 games, get some snaps, and actually run the offense through them. Not like what Nick Sheridan did,
just
and
hand
the ball off for 9 minutes. Idaho should be an empty the bench game. And Western Kentucky's offense is good. It's not last year's offense, but it's good. We'll see what they do against Hawaii tonight. But it take the over in that game, and things like that. So, but it was good to see the defense get takeaways again and play that aggressive style. It was really good to see the offense after struggling in the whole second half, have the confidence to go down and score. There are concerns, but that's like everybody else in the country outside of one or two teams. So they'll be back on the field against Idaho at 8 o'clock next Saturday at Memorial Stadium. And we'll have all the content, pregame content, previews, and all that stuff coming up. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the After the Dust Settles segment. We'll do it the day after every game, and we'll rotate through our writers. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, thanks, Sammy, as always, for having. Hope everybody watching, listening, whatever, enjoys. So, as always, feel free to follow us on Twitter at Hoosier_Huddle. And then, like Sammy said, we'll have everything you need to finish off the Illinois recaps and then get ready for the Idaho game on Saturday over at HoosierHuddle.com.
Yeah, and like, rate, subscribe on YouTube, on the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts as well. And we'll be back breaking down the IU Idaho game on Tuesday, and I think we have an Idaho writer coming on Monday, so we'll see.
Yeah, that'll be great. So yeah, again, thanks for having me, Sammy. IU's 1-0. Wasn't pretty, but it is a 1-0 in the Big Ten column, so that is beautiful for me. So I will take it.
Yep, we'll take it. It had been a while since the last Big Ten win was December 5th, 2020.